Hello! It is Friday night. You know what that means? The Skeptical Help Bar is open. Whew! I am excited. It's a little dark in here. Donna's having a little. She's having a little migraine tonight. A lot of migraine. So she's gonna. That's why it's dark over in the corner, and hopefully she can hang out all night. But if not, she might be taking off a little early tonight. But it's okay.
I might be bailing soon, guys. Sorry.
It's all right. It's all right. Got to take care of yourself first. Anyway, it is Friday night. The bar is open. Hopefully you guys are drinking because I am. And I've been pre-gaming since 4 o'clock. Just a little bit. I've been pacing myself. Don't worry. Anyway, we got a guest tonight. I'm excited to get him on soon. We got to do the rules first. Actually, first I'm going to say hi to some people. Who do we got? We got John, Diane, JD. What's up? Tiffany, John Kennedy, Bob. Am I repeating names? Bob and JD. Everybody's in there, and they're filing in. That's awesome. All right, let's get to the rules. I am pumped. The rules are: you are welcome to ask any kind of questions that you want, especially tonight, because the guy we got on, he does a lot of stuff. And he's okay. I see him nodding in the background. He's like, yeah, you can ask me whatever you want. Bring it on. And he's laughing. Rule number 2, just in case I don't know everything. That's just it. And, my guest might not know everything. But if we have time and we're really interested in it, then we'll look it up because that's what we do here. Rule number 3, we live by the Patrick Swayze rule. And it's be nice. You can talk in the chat room, you can discuss, you can debate, and you can disagree. That's fine. That's cool. I don't care. But if you get out of line, if you start name calling, or if you're a Russian guy that starts posting porn links, Donna will boot your ass because we had to boot some. 3 Tortured Souls. We actually had to boot several people because of that. So, once you start getting Russian porn links, you're popular. That's how I view it because, now you're known the world over. Anyway, so rule number 4 is if you have a question, please do me a favor. Put a Q in front of it. That helps Donna pick it out among all the comments. Especially tonight. I'm not going to do a lot of reading. Poor Donna's. She's hurting tonight. And I almost feel really bad that I'm bugging her to do this. Almost. But I need help. Anyway, and rule number 5, which is my favorite rule of all time, is to drink up. And let's have fun. I'm going to bring on our guest. Just bring him on and we just get into whatever. It's going to be a completely off-the-wall, random, ab-living kind of conversation tonight. So, here we go. Let me bring it on. Our guest tonight is Russ Dobler. How you doing, buddy?
I'm excellent. And I saw you post on Facebook earlier. It probably was about 4:30 about how your evening was beginning, and I was like, I'm looking at my invisible watch, and I'm like, do I have the wrong time? Am I in the wrong time zone? Because am I going to have to host this myself? Mine was full when I sat down too. By the way, so
okay. Well,
you still have much more of a head start than I do, though.
Yes, but I also have a bigger cup. We're talking bigger. So. And this will be going by the commercial break. Unofficial question: what kind of hat is Leia wearing? Oh, this you might like this, Russ. I'll bring it closer because you guys should be able to recognize this. Any?
Is that the St. Vitus Bar logo?
No. Think
it's very shiny.
Think more of, a little bit in the future.
Yeah, I was going to say back to the future.
There you go. Yeah.
Can I be honest with you? I was kind of we'll get to who I am and why any of that matters, I'm sure. But since we're riffing, I was a pretty sheltered kid, and I didn't see Back to the Future until about 2 years ago.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Can you imagine
that
for the first time
surprises me coming from you. Like, out of all my skeptical friends, you're probably the one that I know to be the nerdiest because
thanks. Thank you.
In a good way, though. In a good way, because I mean, you do the AIPT website, and like it's so much about comics and sci-fi.
Yeah, well, you see, that's the thing. So yeah, okay. So here we go. This is
Here we go. So
I'm going to ruin the segue by talking about it.
That's okay.
Yeah. So my name is Russ Dobler. I'm the president of the New York City Skeptics for some unfathomable reason. And one of my main kind of outreach efforts is can I comment in the chat? How do I do that?
I don't think you can on here.
All right. Well, that's fine. If you go to AIPTcomics.com/science, you'll find my stuff. AIPT is it's a general pop culture entertainment website. We do mostly comics because that's what we started with. We have good relationships. Thank you, Kenny.
You're welcome.
We have good relationships with all the major publishers. We do a weekly column with the editor of the X-Men line. All kinds of cool things. We get, review copies of everything you can imagine. And I kind of hooked up with them when they were just starting to grow. They found me from some blog I wrote about superheroes and real life regeneration. Like, could we heal like Wolverine or something like that?
Oh, that'd be cool.
And I just kind of stuck with them. And when they started to get serious and see how far they could take things, I was like, all right, well, maybe I should start getting serious too. And I had written some like science things here and there, regular, kind of science of superhero stuff that you see everywhere. And then it'll be 5 years in July, this coming July, I said, well, let's really make a run at this and see what I can do. So I'm like, I'm gonna post 2 science articles every week.
Wow. How you doing there? Your math will improve.
But yeah, even 2 a week is too many. All right, if I was going to write them all,
right.
It takes research and foreknowledge. I'm not just throwing shit against the wall. That's counter to the thing we're going for, right? So I was like, all right, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to need to edit as much as I write, preferably more than I write. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to start the science section. So I started reaching out to people, people I had met through New York City Skeptics, people, whatever. I started cold emailing people because I had taken some journalism classes and kind of got over my fear of bugging people, which is honestly the number one thing that you really need to make a difference is just don't be afraid to bug people.
Right.
So yeah, it started going pretty well, and eventually I was like, well, let me start doing more, see if I can do more skeptical things involved with pop culture. And I was like, I don't know how much there is to mine there, but man, it worked. And now I swear it's like I barely do any regular science on AIPT Science. It's kind of like, for someone who's not initiated, I wonder what they think when they click on the drop down. They're like, "What is this conspiracy bullshit?"
It's actually really good when you get into the site, and I've had the opportunity to write a few articles, and it's nice. It's taking the movies and television and comics and stuff like that. Before I go on my rant, Marvel or DC?
Marvel all the way.
Marvel all the way. There you go, John. But yeah, I mean, it's great. It's not like articles that it's not that guy that ruins the movie for you,
right,
or just spoils it. It's taking it and applying science and seeing, could we really do this, and exploring the idea instead of just being a downer. It's really good articles. So I love it.
And when we do look at science of movies, science of superheroes, whatever, I mean, more likely than not, it's not going to line up with real life science, but you can say, there's another guy who does this sort of thing, Matt Brady. He does a site called The Science Of. He's actually a high school physics teacher. Used to be, well, I guess still is, one of the co-founders of Newsarama, actually, which was bought by Games Radar, blah, 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 whatever. But one of the first comic book news sites. So he does he actually does like comic book science on his site, but he also puts it in his lesson plans. And he, I think he's the first person I saw say, if not, I'm going to credit it for him anyway. It said, don't kill the fun. That's the number one rule, because once you do that, nobody cares. Nobody wants to. And, you know, skeptics have that reputation of being joy killers. People just want to piss on other people's parades. And that's not how you change minds. That's not how you engage with people. So if we're doing like a science of superheroes thing or whatever, I tell people when they write for me, you can, you know, don't kill the fun. You can say, well, that's not exactly how it goes, but let's talk about something cool that is related to that.
Right. One of my favorite articles I did for you guys was comparing. It started with the idea, and I think it was your idea about force ghosts and how
it actually wasn't my idea. Well, the original idea wasn't mine. Somebody, and this is again where, like, because there's about we have a Discord for AIPT where we talk about things, and you can actually be a part of it if you. We have a Patreon now. You can, I think even the lowest Patreons here, you can be a part of the Discord. But we talk about stuff, and we talk shop, and that's another really big thing that I think skeptics should learn, and I think we'll talk about this more later, is that it's really, really invaluable, and you don't even realize it, to just get a bunch of people in the same room and just start bouncing ideas around.
It is.
Not just for feedback, but just like somebody might think of something that you never would have occurred to you. And this is the thing, like you say, well, I publish a lot of geek stuff, but my geek interests are pretty limited. Like, it's basically Marvel and a couple other niche things like Mystery Science Theater, and everything else. It's like I'm relying on people to tell me about. Or like, I just wrote a thing about this terrible movie that comes out today called Moonfall. That went up today, and I didn't need to know much about the movie. I saw the trailer and I was like, all right, that's stupid. Let me write something about it. And it turns out I don't know if you've seen anything about the movie.
All I did was see the commercial for it.
But it turned out, it took me an embarrassingly long time to realize it was a really good way to talk about Velikovsky and his catastrophism from the 50s. He was the guy who thought that Venus was a comet that was ejected from Jupiter, and like all the planets flew around the solar system, and this is what caused all the miracles in the Bible. Just absolute nonsense. But it's fun to talk about, and it's a nice parable. It's nonsense that's actually gone away, which is rare.
Yeah. Compared to we still deal with.
But the Force Ghost thing was, so, like I said, somebody was like, hey dog, that's what most people call me. And it was like, hey dog, what about that thing in the Star Wars movie where like where Force Ghost Luke grabs the lightsaber, but he's standing in the fire. Like the fire's not hurting him, but he's able to hold the light. Like, is there like a physics thing about that? And I'm like, I mean, maybe, but I've got a better idea. I know a ghost guy. And ghosts are kind of like that. You hear them creaking on the floorboards, but then they'll pass through the wall. It's like, which is it?
Yeah. So
I was like, you know what? Let me talk to him about this, and he might be able to come up with something better than whatever hand wavy physics nonsense I would come up with. And of course you did.
Oh, thank you. That was fun. It was interesting because at first I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. And then I sat down to write it and I'm like, fuck, how do I do this? What am I doing here? Okay. But it forced me to look into not just Star Wars, but other movies and the ghosts they present and how they,
and that led to, so again, I think this is a pretty cool, even during the pandemic, we've had a pretty cool progression, because actually it almost might have helped a little bit, because so this year, thanks to the fact that we're all kind of more used to internet forms of communication,
right?
And we're still kind of hesitant about being out too much, I was like, well, let me do a virtual conference this summer. And I eventually decided to call it the AIPT Sci-Fi Fest, with the Phi as a PHI, as in philosophy. Nice. I think I gave it some stupid tagline like science, philosophy, and philosophy of science seen through a pop culture lens. And we had a lot of, you were a part of it when we get into that. And we had regular science stuff. Like the first guy who came on, Jim Lehane, I went to college with. He did a geology and paleontology of Star Wars thing. But I tried to get as much like real skepticism in there as possible. And again, without using the word skepticism in any of the description material, because that's just a can of worms that I didn't think was worth opening. And so thank you. You adapted your Force Ghost article into a video talk for that, which was awesome. And like you said, you didn't just talk about Star Wars. You talked about Patrick Swayze and Ghost, and Ghostbusters a little bit, and Ghost Tech. Yeah. So it was really cool.
Yeah, it's fun to explore that because it forces you. Because I'm used to. I mean, most of the stuff that I do, I focus on one case, like one person making claims, one event that somebody claimed to happen. So I zero in on that. And writing, every time Skepticism Month comes around, which we're going to talk about in a second, but when that comes around and you ask for another article, it's like, oh, all right, this is forcing me to get out of my comfort zone and try something else. I think one of the articles I wrote for you wasn't it the superstition one? Or you wrote it or gathered, didn't you?
Yeah, I did a couple articles for CSI Online about favorite superstitions.
I'm way off then. Never mind.
Never mind. But that was another good. That was another good. I mean, I'm always thinking about. I mean, the whole point of AIPT Science is to get outside the echo chamber and to reach people who aren't going to read, honestly, aren't going to read your investigation of a haunted house in Kentucky or whatever. And I tried it in those Skeptical Inquirer articles. What I did was I just, again, kind of cold emailed a bunch of well-known skeptics, with all deference to Rob Palmer and his appellation. And I said, is there a superstition that you believe, maybe just a little bit, or one you just really like and you think is neat and funny? And, basically everybody I contacted was game and gave me something. And I think that was a good way to, I don't know if humanize is the right word, but to show people like, we're not immune to this stuff either. And we can find it entertaining, even if we don't think we're literally going to die if there's a 13th floor in your building, It
goes along with what you were saying. Like the stereotype of skeptics are that they are killjoys, that they're the people that come in and go, oh, no, you're having fun. That's not the way it goes. And we ruin it for everyone. And it's not. And it's taken me a long time to get most people to understand that's not what we do. But
you know what? I think it's a generational thing. And I think, let me walk that back a little bit. I think there are a lot of people who, in our cohort, who have spent a lot of time and effort getting out of that mode. I don't think it's something that just happened. I think it's something that needed help from individuals like you and me and the people we know.
Right.
But I listen to I don't love this podcast, but I listen to there's a lot of it. So I listen to at work a podcast called The Saucer Life, which is done by a history professor, and he kind of jumps around throughout flying saucer history, and he's really big into contactees, which is funny the first couple times he does it, but then it's like, oh, all right, here's another guy from Venus or whatever. And he talked about he's more just interested in like the story aspect of it. Like he doesn't really care what's true or not. And and like, and for that reason, like, even though he's not like a hardcore believer, he still gets his hackles raised about like the old timey skeptics, like, because he sees them as killjoys. And if you look back at the work of like somebody, again, talking about UFOs, of like Phil Klass, who was, I'll use the word notorious, especially to hardcore believers. He definitely, if you read his stuff, he definitely seemed to, he knew what he was doing, obviously. He knew his stuff. He knew how to, figure out what was really going on in a particular case. But he was also really snide about it. And he kind of, you can tell he kind of looked down his nose at people who believed in this stuff. Okay. And honestly, that's one of the things that I was really into weird stuff when I was a kid. And that snarky attitude was, I might have gotten to science and skepticism earlier if it wasn't for the snarky attitude of people, some people like that. And obviously I'm not blaming anybody, but it is what it is. I mean, you get what you put out in the world,
Yeah. And I mean, that's something I've tried to avoid. And I know I suffered from it. I did have a snarky attitude at one time, and
I think it's like the zeal of the converted. Like when you first get into it, it's like you want to go out all guns blazing, and then you realize like, oh, this isn't actually helping anybody.
And that's what it was. I was a ghost hunter for many years. I believed in this stuff, and then I was slowly converting over to a more skeptical side, which I don't know if that's the right way to say it, because I didn't convert. I didn't like suddenly like take a vow or I wasn't a woke guy, or anything like that. It was, I started looking at more of the skeptical and science material and saying, oh, well, I am not doing it right. Maybe I should do it this way, or maybe I should do it that way. And it was a gradual thing.
I'll tell you, it was a gradual thing for me too, but I did have an epiphany moment that I'll get to in a second. I might have told this story last time, but it's good enough that I want to tell it again if I did. But first, I saw Jade ask a question. I think she's referring to Sci-Fi Fest.
I had it.
I like that conference. Will it happen again? Yes, I do plan on doing it again this July. And this time, I'm going to really try to focus. This is my plan at the moment, 6 months out or whatever it is. My plan at the moment is that I want to, I do this really infrequent kind of article, column, whatever, on AIPT Science. I call it the critical angle, which is trying to apply skepticism to geek culture, pop culture debates, because I think it's weird. Skepticism is in a weird place where it used to be like all UFOs and ghosts, and people thought that was pretty useless. And now we've moved into GMOs and vaccines and things like that. But in any case, a lot of people don't seem to realize, or at least we don't make it clear to people, that these are tools and techniques that you can use in any kind of decision. And any, I always compare it to buying a used car. You're going to find out, you're not going to believe what the guy is telling you. You're going to ask for the Carfax. You're going to kick the tires. You're going to exercise good skepticism and do whatever you can to find out everything you can about this car. So the critical angle is using data and logic and whatever evidence you can find to support your side of a pop culture argument, or not even like try to prove you're right. Just try to figure out what's really true. Like I did something on, people will say, especially older people will say, well, all these comic book movies are dumbing down American cinema. And so I said, all right, well, how would you test that? Can we apply data to that? So I looked at Rotten Tomato scores over the last 30 years, something like that, and compared like superhero movies to non-superhero movies. And the superhero movies were rated a tiny bit less. And if I put my parameters in different places, maybe it would, change a little bit. But it was a good hypothesis test, or a hypothesis finding experiment. And the point is that you don't have to just argue about this stuff endlessly. Like, you can actually get a little closer to the truth if you actually want to.
Right.
And so that's that. And I forget where I was going with this.
The critical angle.
The critical angle. I think I was talking about a specific thing, but maybe it'll come to me again.
Well,
but there's
back to that when it pops in.
There's a couple of those coming up. Actually, there was a one.
The conference. We were talking about the conference. You were trying to do a new.
Yes. So this year I'm going to try to do.
I remembered.
I'm going to try to do all talks along those lines of applying data and a little bit of thought to pop culture arguments. I know I've interviewed a guy before who does comic book sales stuff, and there's always this whenever somebody doesn't like something that happens in a comic book, usually it's coming from Fox News, sometimes it's coming from somewhere else. They say, the comic book industry is dying, so they have to do these stunts to try to, squeeze whatever.
Bring people back in, yeah.
The funny thing is, if you actually take the time to look at the sales, the comic book industry is fine. It's actually way better way healthier than it was 20 years ago. Like, way healthier. And it's bucking all the trends of the other print periodicals that have declined with the rise of the internet and digital media.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, it's not all digital comics. Digital comics exist, and they went up the first few years they existed, but then they kind of plateaued. So the rises that we're seeing over time, and preliminary data is showing that 2021 was a big, big year for comics in stores, in comic book stores, in bookstores. Sure. So the rises we're seeing there, that's physical media. That's printed periodicals selling and increasing over time. It's all the people saying like, "Oh, nobody reads comic books anymore." It's horse shit. You look at the data. So I want to get him on to really crack down on this and tell us what's what. So that's my idea, and similar things like that. There's also a guy who does like really tight pro wrestling analysis, like ratings and ticket sales and things like that. I'd like to get him on. Fingers crossed. And a few others too. And if anybody can think of anybody, please let me know. Again, it's that stew of ideas. Throw me whatever you got.
I like that. I agree, John. I mean, digital books. I remember when it was real big when the Kindle first came out, and what was the Amazon Firestorm or Fire or something like that. There were a couple digital books, and I have one. Unfortunately, I got one that had known problems where the battery would drain. Once the battery drained all the way, it would never recharge. So I basically have a little brick.
Yeah, and I know lots of people, including young people like 30 or under or early 30s, who just don't like digital comics. They only want like even young people though. There are those who just want physical, who just still hold it because it is different. Yeah. I mean, they look great. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I have a subscription to Marvel Unlimited, which has most of the back catalog,
right?
But a lot of that is for research if I need to go back and read an issue for an idea or whatever,
right? Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm finishing Dan Slott's Spider-Man run on Unlimited. I have a tablet a cheap ass tablet that my wife bought me, which is all I need. I don't need an expensive thing. And I'll read it for things I really want to enjoy. Like I'm reading Immortal Hulk right now. If you haven't read that, everybody, please go out and get the first volume, at least to see if you like it, because it's fucking amazing. Immortal Hulk. It goes back to the beginning where like it took them like a long time to figure out the Hulk, like to get to where he is now. Like he was basically a werewolf at first. Like he was, he didn't turn from anger. He turned from at night when the sun went down, the Hulk came out. Wow. And this writer, Al Ewing, on Immortal Hulk went back to that and turned it into a horror book. So basically, if you kill Banner during the day, the Hulk will revive at night. Like you can't kill him. So it is a terrifying book where he goes to hell and all sorts of things. But Immortal Hulk, I'm reading in paperbacks. I just bought 10 goddamn paperbacks to read this book. But something I'm not so interested in, I will bite the bullet and just read it on Unlimited. Yeah. It's good that it's there, but it's definitely a different experience.
I when my Kindle was working, I probably had about 150, 200 books that I had downloaded, and it was more for reference.
Yeah.
But I would try to read a book and I just couldn't do it. I like to have the book in my hand. I like to feel the paper. Especially when it's older books, I love the smell of older books, and I need that. And it's the same with comics. I'd rather go to my comic book store and buy like a stack of comics and then come home and just sit like a little kid and just read them, and just enjoy it. But digital, no, I don't. I'm just never been a fan of it.
Yeah, like I said, I'll do it when I have to, but it's definitely not my first choice.
So Skepticism Month is February, and that's why you're on here. That's why you're getting so many people to try to write articles. How did this come about?
Well, all right, I need to reload for this. So, God, I don't even know when I first started it at this point. What year I first started it?
A long time ago.
It was at least a few years ago, and when again, I think most of AIPT Science was actual science. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to do a month where I'm going to try to get as many skepticism in pop culture articles as I can. Again, as opposed to now when most everything is skepticism, which is awesome and all I could have ever hoped for. But so it's a little redundant now. But at the same time, last year I promised to attempt to have a new article on skepticism in pop culture, or skepticism of pop culture, the critical angle, every day in February. And I picked February because, one, it's a short month, and two, it's Darwin's birthday. February 12th is Darwin's birthday. Darwin Day has been a thing for New York City Skeptics. So I was like, all right, so that's my excuse in celebration of Darwin's birthday. Awesome. And last year, I tripped up a little bit. Put most of the blame on myself, and I couldn't get one out every day, so I over-delivered and did 29 articles in 28 days in total. Okay. It wasn't one every day, but it was 29 total.
You got that.
If I keep on my horse, I think we can get one every day this month. Okay. So that's a new goal. It used to be I tried to do I think the first year I did it, I had 17 articles.
Okay.
And I think I wrote 3, and I got 14 from other people. And now my goal is every single day, and I think we're going to hit it again this year.
So for a few people, I know there's a few people in the chat room that do like to research and contribute when they can. What criteria is there? What if somebody wanted to submit an article? What would they need?
Pitch me, or pitch me something, and if I don't like the original pitch, there's probably a kernel of something in there that we can work with and figure something else out.
Okay.
And even if you don't have an idea, I do this with a lot. I do this with people a lot. Just tell me what you're into. Tell me what you're into skepticism wise. Tell me what you're into pop culture wise, and I'll try to connect the dots. I don't know. Steve Lundquist is a guy from New Hampshire Skeptics. He's a longtime volunteer for Nexus. He did some amazing former Navy pilot, I believe. No, it was Air Force. And he did some amazing UFO articles for me recently, really more in depth on certain cases, like the Kinross disappearance, more in depth than I'd ever seen anywhere, just because of he had the experience of knowing what aviation was like 70 years ago, and his own experience. But I was like, all right, hey, can you give me something for February? And he's like, well, I don't have any ideas. And I'm like, well, tell me what you're into. And he listed a bunch of things. And I looked at it at first, and I was like, I don't know a goddamn thing about any of this. So eventually, when I had 5 minutes, and it was 2 or 3 weeks later, I looked at it again, and I was like, all right. So basically, I took all of the pop culture things he had listed, and I basically Googled each one. And I was like, wasn't there something, I swear, when this show started, wasn't there something about Foundation that I found really interesting? And so I went back to it and I looked at the TV description for the show Foundation. And I was like, I don't see it. So I went back to Asimov's original Foundation and I'm like, oh, there's something about prophecy in here. Okay. And it was like kind of like Nostradamus prophecy, but also kind of like social science predictions. Okay. And I was like, hey, can you do something with this? And he's like, okay, yeah, maybe I'll do 2 articles, one about the social, one about the actual. And I'm like, dude, pick one. Start with that. And then we'll see where we go from there. So I haven't touched base with him about it again since, but I think he's working on it. And he was really reliable about the UFO stuff. So I think he's going to come through. And that's how it works.
I think with writers, I think we all have an issue with time dilation where it's like, yeah, give me a couple minutes. And that turns into a couple days. And it's just because I do that all the time. I'm like, yeah, I can bang out an article. I'll have it done tomorrow. And it's like a week later. Oh, yeah, I have it. Hold on. It's halfway done. But I think that's just with everyone. That's all of us. We do.
Oh, JD said something very nice in the chat. Russ is easy to write for. Thank you. And thank you, Kenny, for introducing me to JD, because I don't know how you're going to take this, JD, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Say it.
You have become such a better writer since I started working with you. It's amazing. Because I remember like when you first started sending me stuff, I was like, well, let's move this around here, and I don't know about the word choice here, but JD, already a part of Skepticism Month already. This year, he wrote something about the Necronomicon and how it appeared in a Ghost Adventures episode.
Love it.
And I was like, and I read that, and I barely had to touch it. So I know, JD, you do stuff for Skeptical Inquirer too. So you're doing it, man. This is another reason I really wanted to do AIPT Science, because like honestly, I don't really like writing that much. That's why I was like, let me edit. I'm a better editor than I am a writer. And I'll do it when I have to fill a gap. But I would much rather, again, given my my education in journalism, I would much rather help other people craft their own voice and get it out there, because I'm just one guy. But if I can help 50 people craft their voice and talk about what they know to other people, that's putting a lot more good in the world than I could just do writing myself.
And we need that, because it's not everyone has gone to school for journalism.
Yeah, exactly.
Writing.
I tell people I spent $7,000 so you don't have to.
There you go. And it's nice. I mean, I've learned. Ben Rafford has been my editor for the last couple of years, and it's very nice because we have a good relationship. We have a good friendship. So it's not like boss and employee where he's like, well, we need to go over this and this and this. Usually I send him an article, and if I screw something up, he's like, look, fucker, you stop doing this. Stop. Don't send me another article like this. It sucks. But he usually sends me back a lightly edited revision back, and he's like, here's your piece of shit article. And I know it's all in fun and we have fun, but I've learned a lot from him. And likewise, JD has come a long way, I think. He's very enthusiastic, very excited.
Yeah. And that's the important thing is like, if you're willing to put the time in and take I don't even want to say criticism, take the help. Then the sky's the limit. It really is. And it's not like I know everything. I'm not pretending I do, but at least I try to. A lot of people in our of our ilk, don't seem to. They just write and then they don't really think about the audience. But if we're really going to affect change, then you do need to think about the audience. Right.
And writing styles differ from person to person. And
I've had that experience with somebody who writes stuff for me. He wrote in a very, I don't want to say technical style, but a very formal style. And I was like, dude, and he got really mad when I edited him. And I was like, I'll put in a good word for Skeptical Inquirer if you want. Like, you can go write for them. And I wasn't trying to be snarky at all. I was like, But this is an entertainment site. Like, you have to change your tone, or there's no point in me publishing it. And eventually, we came to an understanding.
And I guess when I'm writing something, it depends on the topic, and I really try to keep my personality in it. You know, I want to bring you the information. I want to take you along with me. That's usually my premise is I want to take you along the investigation journey with me, you know, and you see what I do step by step. And now, especially like I do the videos now, and that's just a lot more fun because I can joke around more, and you can see that I'm joking around. And instead of writing it, you know, when you write out a joke, sometimes it doesn't work, you know, and it's like,
you definitely need to say it out loud.
Yes. Yeah. So writing styles are great. And we learn. I mean, I like being able to go through an editor because things may sound good to me, but like sometimes when I pass it to Donna and say, "Hey, can you read this?" She's like,
what are you trying to say?
Maybe you need to change this part here. So it's always nice to get a different opinion, and then like send it to you. You've edited the articles I've sent you, and but I don't get butthurt at all because you actually make them better. So I'm good. I'm good with that. Anything that makes me look better, I am all for. So yeah.
Yeah, most people I forgot to do my count before I'm going to be on a couple other podcasts later on. I forgot. I usually do a count of like how many articles I've edited and how many people I've edited up to this point. I think it's probably in the last, and I'm just talking about since July of 2017. So not even 5 years, probably around 500 articles and 75, 80 different people. And most of those people, like you, will say, thank you. I appreciate the help. And then there's some, like I said, the guy was like, you changed my, didn't actually say this, but it was like, you changed my comma to a semicolon. You destroyed it all. But again, that's very, very rare. Usually, you know, because again, and I'm going to say this right out, we're a pretty big sized site, like for a corporate owned website in this genre of pop culture and stuff. We're about as big as it gets. But at the same time, if you want to make money, don't run a website because like we basically break even. Like our ad revenue basically covers the server cost because we have a lot of images, obviously being a comic book site. So our ad revenue basically covers the monthly server costs.
Okay.
So I don't pay anybody. I've never paid anybody a cent. So that's 500 articles that people did out of the goodness of their heart just because they wanted to put something good out there into the world.
Right. That's good. Yeah.
We're all on the same team here is what I'm saying. So
we
it's
are.
not,
and
there's
nice.
There's really no point in being adversarial. We're all trying to make each other better.
Right. And it goes back to the comment you made earlier where it's like, it's really nice when the rare cases we can all get into a room together, you know, and actually talk. And I love helping out. Like JD and I talk a lot. There's two other guys, Tim Vickers, Dave Schumacher, I do another show with. We talk every day, you know, and JD is even on a conversation with that. But I also talk with most of the people that are in the chat room and then reach out to other people. I remember one of the coolest moments, and this is just a total skeptic geek moment, was at one of the SciCons where I was invited to a meeting. And I walked into the room and there is, and I wrote it down so I remember everyone, but Joe Nickel, Mark Edward, Susan Gerbic, Ross Blotcher, Mick West, me, and I think there were two other people, but like they were pitching a television series and they wanted to get like ideas from us and wanted us to be a part of it. It never happened, but it was so cool that I was sitting there looking around at all these people like I listen to and I read and I look up to, and I was like, wow, I'm part of this. This is so cool. And I was totally geeking out, but I couldn't like let that on because I was trying to play cool, you know? But it was really cool to be in there and they threw out an idea and it wasn't just a bunch of people arguing with each other, like who can be the best or who can be the loudest and the more dominant or in the spotlight. Everyone was contributing. Everyone was complimenting or adding on to the other person's. It was nice. So like you said, we're all on the same team here. Let's try that. Even if we have different beliefs, there's a few people that pop in the chat room or watch that are not skeptics. They might be more on the believer side or full believer or have some doubts and ideas, but we still work together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Donna's still here. But that's nice. That's the nice thing about it. We can all work together for a common goal. Even if we have, different intentions of where that goal goes.
And one of the things we talked about last year was kind of how I got involved with New York City Skeptics. And it was kind of like, it was kind of like a longer process than maybe it should have been. Because, I mean, honestly, I was about to say we're not the most social people. This excludes you, of course, because...
Hell yeah. I drink with anyone.
But, there were certain people not affiliated with New York City Skeptics, but like around Nexus time when people would come around that I felt were kind of standoffish and not really as open to mingling with people they didn't know. And maybe that's just my perception because I'm on the autism spectrum, so my perception isn't always accurate. So like it took me, it was a few years, well, I don't know I forget how long it was exactly, of me hanging around before I started talking to people and being like, yo, I want to help. Let me do something. And then, when people get to trust you, then that's when the ideas start flowing. And, but if you're looking to write for AIPT Science, I don't need to trust you. If you've got a good idea, if you've got a good pitch, I'll at least take your article and look at it. I don't think I've ever straight turned anything down that I can remember.
So this is a good place to start. If somebody wants to start into this,
100%.
Here's your opportunity. This is a good place for anyone that's watching, either right now in the chat room or if you're watching a replay. This is a good place to start. Pitch them an idea.
Yeah. And again, that's like I said, I'm providing free editorial advice. I mean, not only are you going to get your, maybe I'm blowing smoke up my own ass here, but not only are you going to get your stuff out there to a site that gets 500,000 unique hits a month, and relationships with all the major comics publishers and some television streamers too. Whatever. But you're getting, again, like we said before, you're getting the benefit of my journalism education, which a lot of people in our circles don't know, don't have, or don't care about. They think if you just get the information out there, like a scientific paper, then that's good enough. But of course, if you're going to influence people in the public sphere, in science, if you want to be my degree's in geophysics, if you want to be a volcanologist, you have to read all the volcanology papers. You have to. Right. You don't have a choice. They're dry as shit. You got to read them. It doesn't matter. In the real world, where people have a choice, especially now when we're competing with porn and Pokemon, you need to make yourself attractive. And I think still a lot of people, maybe in the old guard mostly, don't understand that or don't accept it. Like I said, so everything, I mean, you're not going to get paid. If you write for me, you're not going to get paid. But I would like to think you're gaining something in understanding how to relate to today's audience. Yeah. And to me, that's the most important thing.
So you mentioned old guard. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Because I think I know what
I'd rather
not by that. Okay. All right, never mind.
No. I think it's. We talked about it a little bit already. I mean, it is. The easiest way to make the demarcation is between snark and, if not compassion, at least empathy. Understanding where people are coming from, understanding that.
Hi, Susan.
You're welcome, Susan. This is what you get for knowing me.
Man. No, but you're right. You're right. I mean, there's and not getting too deep into it. There has to be a shift. Yeah, because
let me fall on my sword here,
Sure.
and once since you asked the question, I'm not gonna since you asked the question, I will go ahead and impale myself slightly for you, and I will say that I forgot what I was gonna say.
Maybe that's good. Keep drinking.
Energy.
Stop.
Energy.
Energy is our buzzword here. That's a game that we play that when someone says the word energy in the wrong context, like Ghost Hunters, we have to drink. So
it's fantastic.
You already drank.
As a physicist, I appreciate that because whenever somebody, well, my background is in physics, and whenever somebody says, "Oh, it's energy," I'm like, "Okay, what kind of energy? Heat, light, radiation?" Because that's about it.
Yeah, we do the same thing, and I'm constantly. That's probably there's a few things that I'm a total dick about, and one is energy. When people use energy, I'm like, yeah, I'm the same way. What kind? What are you talking about here? The other thing is when they interchange hypothesis and theory when they're talking science.
But you know what? I think that might be another thing where maybe we should be a little more empathetic because not everybody, I have the benefit of actually having a college science background. Like, I spent a lot of money to learn geophysics. Not everyone's going to do that. And, and people who are interested in that sort of stuff like us will go read popular books about it. Mm-hmm. But it's almost a canard saying, "Oh, you don't understand energy, therefore I don't have to listen to you." And I'm not saying that's what you're saying because I know for a fact, you in particular, that's not what you're saying. But I can understand how the person you're talking to could perceive it that way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is funny to us, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, well, if you're talking about energy, there's really only 3 kinds. And so if it doesn't fit into one of those things, what are we really talking about here? And that might be a way. And I'm saying this now because I'm guilty of it too, to be honest. Mm-hmm. So that might be a way to kind of push the conversation forward rather than putting the wall up.
So I get that, and I'm the same way. Like, we make fun of it now, and we make fun of it on the show because it's funny to us, and it's something that's routine. We've dealt with it for a long time, but when it does come up, and it's in most cases, it's people that are not trying to be scientific. They're using it because it's the tribal knowledge. It's the routine. It's the thing they grew up with or started believing. So I ask, and we have a conversation about it, and that's the nice thing about it. Speak for yourself. I get invited to parties, Susan.
No, you missed the
first did part. I miss the first part? What's the first? Yeah, give us more of a break. Energy is just a word we say. Oh.
But again, it's a teachable moment. You can say, well, energy has a very specific meaning in science.
Exactly. And that's what I get into. Like, what are we talking about? Because this is what definition, and what are we talking about here? Do you understand? Are we applying the correct definition to what you're saying? Let's think about that. And it's more a conversational piece. It's not, I don't ridicule people unless I'm really drunk on this show. Then I do. But otherwise, I don't.
Well, I think, and I think psychological studies show this, that ridicule does have a place, but it's not going to help the person you're ridiculing.
Right.
If you have an audience witnessing the ridicule, I'm not saying drag Deepak Chopra into the street and like yell in his face so people can laugh at him, although that might be fun. Right. But you need to, there's a lot of these psychological things that, what I really want to do is I want to revive the Skeptics Toolbox.
Oh yeah.
Because that would be a really good one-stop shop for getting people skills on how to relate to people and how to communicate. So I think that's after the break. I think we'll talk about #SkepCom. Sorry, I just took over this podcast.
That's okay. This is your show.
Question
There's lots of
from Diron.
So
Since I'm running the podcast now,
we have a lot of questions.
Why is it a good percentage of people who believe in the paranormal do not seem to like solving mysteries? Kenny, I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
What? Wait, look at him. He's taking. Where did he get that question? Where's that question? Oh, there it is. Donna takes care of all the questions. I don't even pay attention to.
I'm running this podcast.
All right. Why is a good percentage of people who believe in the paranormal do not seem to like solving mysteries when it comes to their claims? Well, I think because I think the majority are good intention. They mean well, but they don't understand what it means to investigate and solve a mystery. They are looking at they're emulating the ghost hunting shows, where you go in, you ask for noises, you ask for voices, you ask for shadow people, you get these anomalies, and it's more thrill seeking. They get it, they get excited, and they're like, "Oh, great, that's awesome! We got what we came for." They're not looking to solve a mystery. That's not their purpose. Their purpose is to go in there because, I mean, and I've talked about it on the show a lot, where you read on social media before they even get to the place, they're saying, "I can't wait to get all the evidence tonight." So they're already convinced they are when they're not even there. So I don't think they're trying to solve mysteries. I think they're going in there already convinced that there's something there. They're just looking for the anomalies. They are anomaly hunting. They're not ghost hunting. They're not investigating. They are anomaly hunting.
Are they looking for confirmation?
According to their beliefs, yes.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. They're looking for confirmation that fits in with their worldview. So
I agree. I don't think, especially when you look at paranormal TV and related things, monster TV, whatever, the mystery mongering is the point. Like, nobody's trying to figure out what's going on, because if you have an answer, they're not going to come back.
Yeah. There you go. I think he answered the question. Awesome. All right. Let's do one more question, and then we'll take our break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more. John Michael, John without an H. If one wanted to get started in writing articles for skepticism, where's a good place to start? Personal blog? Is there a skeptic camp for people wanting to break into writing articles?
AIPT Science. Talk to me. Talk to me.
There you go.
Because I'm going to be more generous with my meager knowledge than anybody else is going to be. I'm going to tell you right now, because this is literally all I do, buddy. I'll tell you before we go to break. So the reason that I'm doing this now, the reason I took journalism classes, is because several years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago, my wife went back to college, and we don't have kids. We don't want kids. We're not going to have kids. So I was like, all right, I've got a decent job, got a house, got the wife. She's going back to school. What the hell am I going to do? Am I just going to sit here and twiddle my thumbs? I got to do something. So that's when I took my journalism classes, and I thought I was going to do science journalism, but you can't. You basically can't at this point, or at least you can't make a living at it. You can do a little thing here and there, which I've done, and I'm sure we all have at some point. But like, this is my jam now. This is what I spend my time doing. I spend my time trying to help people develop their voice. And, again, because if I can, it's like teach a man to fish, if I can help you figure out a way to connect with people, then you go out and do things. If you graduate from AIPT Science, like, you get a better gig, that's a success. I'll find somebody else, We'll get paid, young man. That's fine with me. The more people out there doing the Lord's work, the better.
Right. But remember where you came from. I
don't even care. I don't care.
I
don't care. No, in my case, I don't care. You can forget the fuck about me. I don't care.
I do.
We're an hour in. Can you tell we're an hour in? Forget the fuck about me. I don't care.
I'm gonna put my 2 cents in here. I'm all for moving on. I'm advancing expanding what you're doing, awesome. You know what? Take that next step. Go for it. But if you remember where you came from, don't get too big for the people that helped you along the way. So, like, anyone that asks me for help, I'm going to help them, unless I don't like you.
Real quick, JD just posted. I'm glad you said that, because I've debated going back for science journalism, but I was like, why? That's more debt, and that's pretty much what I'm doing now anyway. I mean, yeah, it's like, I mean, I can recommend you books. I can recommend you books that help me, and just ask me. Or like, if you ask me how to write an article, and I'll tell you. And it's just it's literally structural things like inverted pyramid. Get everything in the the lead sentence is the important thing. Under 35 words. Like, I can walk you through this, and I will be glad to do it.
Awesome. And I would also add for this question, I mean, just my personal experience, I started with a blog, and that had rough cuts on it, because I would just write what I thought was writing. And the more I learned, the more I got help, advice, criticism from other people, the more I refined it. And it's a continuing practice for people, because you're constantly adding to your blog. Like what I'm broadcasting on now, the I Am Kenny Biddle page for Facebook is my blog page, and I've been doing it for years, and that helped me refine what I was doing. So, I mean, I definitely would start that too, because that's for other things. Like, if I don't think a topic is really meaty enough for a full article, like an in-depth article, where I can really reference it and make a point, maybe it's something smaller. And even that helps you. That gives you practice. So you put it on your blog, and then you share it out there and see who's interested.
And you have to play to your own skills too. I think you are brilliant with video, and I thank you for doing it. Me personally, I'm a dunce with video, so that's why I write and edit. I'm approximately 1,000 years old.
All right, let's do our break. We're gonna do a break. It's gonna be about 3 minutes, so you have 3 minutes to empty and refill. You guys know what I mean by that. So let me cue it up here, and everyone gets ready. And here we go in 3, 2, 1. Hey everyone, this is my store based on the theme of science and skepticism. It's here that you can find all kinds of shirts and hoodies, yoga pants, tote bags, the fanny packs I know you guys love, masks and pillows, all with science and skepticism as the theme. I even have hoodies for your pets. That's right, your dog or cat can wear one of these things. I also have a general store that sells more inspirational quotes or, drinking stuff, because I like that kind of thing. I also have a store set up for our Three Tortured Souls podcast, which we do Saturday nights. You can find shirts and Tim Vicker's favorite drinking vessel, the mug. I also have a store tailored a little bit more towards my ghost hunting friends, Paranormal by I Am Kenny Biddle. These are shirts and quotes that are a little bit more on the ghost hunting side, especially this one, Translucent Perished Beings. Ghosts. That's my favorite. So if you're interested, head on over to teespring.com/stores/scientific skepticism by IAKB and check it out. Thanks.
Are you tortured by what you see and hear about the paranormal field? Join us as we critically examine and question paranormal claims, science, ghosts, demons, cryptids, UFOs, ghost hunting technology, and much more are all on the table for discussion. Three Tortured Souls is a video podcast that streams live on Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 Pacific.
All right, made it back. That's good. That's good. All right, let me pop through some of these questions. We got three from my buddy Jimmy here. I think the first one's kind of a statement, and then we get into a question. So while there's a lot of sloppy talk about energy, a basic definition of energy is the capacity to do work. And two, he follows it up with, if paranormal effects are real, it would be natural to explain them in terms of energy, but it would be an undiscovered form of energy due to the effects being paranormal rather than normal. And then third part of that, one should be cautious about recklessly proposing undiscovered forms of energy, but science would not preclude them from existing.
So again, as someone with a physics background, if something is having an effect on the real world, it should be measurable. And it should probably be measurable in ways that we already understand, because we're not amazing. We don't know everything about the universe. Where's my soda? I don't even know where my soda is.
You don't need soda. Just go straight.
I told you I'm 1,000 years old. I swear I wasn't. Did anyone else age 10 years in the last year, or was that just me?
I did.
Oh, yeah, I think so. I know I gained about 10 years worth of.
I hear that. My poor Chupacabra shirt. Did you see this, by the way?
Yes, I love it.
Shout out to Ben wherever he is.
Yeah.
The Chupacabra Slayer. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about miracles too. It's like, if someone or something is intervening, you should be able to measure it. And to think that there's a kind of energy out there that we haven't seen, in the era of the CERN Super Collider and so many other things, it really stretches the bounds of credibility. And I hate to rely on an old chestnut like extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, but you really got to come up with something good if you're going to posit an entirely new, different form of energy in the year 2022.
But I do agree about just not dismissing it out of hand.
Sure. I'm just saying, you really better bring the goods.
You got to bring it. Yeah. You got to bring the milkshake to the playground if you want to get considered.
Everything in science is conditional.
Yeah.
I mean, look at, again, as someone with a physics background and someone who likes the history of science, Newton was mostly right and then Einstein modified Newton. Einstein modifying Newton is mostly right, but we may need to modify that for the very small scale where relativity doesn't seem to apply. So it's a process of getting closer and closer to reality.
Mm-hmm. All right. We got one more question to get through. And that is, if you pull a ghost finger, what kind of, thank you, Darren.
That's your expertise. That's all you.
You I don't know. What do you get? Ectoplasm.
Can I tell you?
You can tell me.
I'm going to be 42 in April. So young. I was still young. I was still young when Ghostbusters came out. And that is probably what kind of sparked my interest in ghosts and weird stuff.
I think that is most of the population. That
common story, right?
Yeah.
God damn you, Dan Aykroyd. But Ghostbusters was my favorite movie when I was 5, 6 years old. And I've watched it, obviously, several times since then. Maybe not all of it. Because it was probably 5 or so years ago that I realized what was going on in that one montage with the backtrack where the ghost pulls down Ray's zipper.
Oh, yes.
It was probably about 5 years ago that it finally clicked with me. Oh,
yeah.
That's dirty.
I was the same way. Growing up, I mean, Ghostbusters came out in 1984. And we were, what, 12? 12. And I remember seeing that and thinking, like, what's going on here? I don't get it. I don't understand.
That's how I watched the new one in the theater. I braved it. And I didn't hate it. It was better than the other reboot that they did a few years ago.
We don't speak of that here.
Yeah. And not because it was women, it just wasn't written well.
It just was shit movie. Yeah.
But it really kind of missed that comedic / raunchy mark. It was like kismet. I don't know how that first Ghostbusters movie did it. It was lightning in a bottle. I don't think that's something that can ever really be recaptured.
I think because you had these guys that were like from Saturday Night Live, they were improv. They did. And a lot of that stuff, although it was a scripted film, a lot was improv. And it was just them going with the scene. And you don't get that nowadays. You see it sometimes, but you just don't get that. And the comedic talent that was in that film.
But that's the thing. It wasn't a straight comedy, which I think is the mistake that the reboot made. Because the reboot was pretty much a straight comedy.
Yeah.
And I think the recent one might have gone too far the other way in that it pulled a little too much. It was a little too much. It was a little too family. When, again, the original Ghostbusters, it was kind of layers so that kids could enjoy it, but they didn't get the raunchy jokes that the adults got, Right. That was kind of lacking in the new one, too, I thought.
Yeah. I agree.
That's the nerdiest thing I will say tonight.
Sure it is.
Maybe. No promises. I shouldn't say that.
I do see.
Look, I'm refilled. Look.
Yeah, keep drinking. Darren, when was the last time either of you investigated anything paranormal, and what was it you investigated?
Kenny, you go first. No, you go first. You're the host.
No, you're the guest. And it's your show. You took over, bitch.
No, well, I passed the remote control back to you because I'm going to segue into this. So you go ahead.
Okay. All right. So the last one I did was actually not too long ago. It was a private residence. A woman contacted me, and actually she contacted me, and I was going to bring JD along with me, but unfortunately JD's kid got sick. And he couldn't make it. So it was a private home. They claimed a lot of things were going on in the house. And I was able to go there and go through claim by claim. And for the most part, I was able to solve some major mysteries that they had. Videos that they had, pictures and experiences. We went through it, walked them through it, and we actually recreated some of the stuff. Some of it I couldn't recreate because it was just completely random experiences that I had an idea of what was going on, and I gave them the most plausible explanations that I could come up with based on what I saw while I was there. So, I do get out when I can, and a lot of the stuff I've done some mystery solving actually right from here. Just been able to research enough documents and actually get somebody on video like this and talk to them and figure out what's going on, have them recreate stuff. But the last time I did it was, I don't know, like 4 or 5 months ago, maybe, I think. So, all right, your turn.
Yeah, that's great. We've talked about this before, and it's great that you do that. And it's not like you just, like you said, you don't just go out and do it yourself. You'll go out with paranormal groups and kind of be I don't want to say the voice of reason, but
a different voice.
Yeah, a different voice, a voice with different ideas.
Yeah.
Like we talked about before, bouncing ideas around. So that's great. Me, on the other hand, I don't do any actual work. And that's, again, the point of AIPT Science. I see AIPT Science as a proof of concept of something new I'm introducing. I think this will be, no, I can't say it's the first time it's been online, but a new concept I'm introducing called #SkepCom, because everybody really likes SciComm, right? And why does SciComm, science communication, exist? Because 20, 30 years ago, and every day before that time, scientists didn't really think they needed to interact with the public, or at least a lot of them in the modern day. They sat in their ivory tower and did their work. And as long as they were left alone, because, scientists are nerdy and maybe not the most social. I know it's a stereotype, but it's true for some people. Then they were happy, and they didn't really care what the public thought.
Right.
And then we had things like Andrew Wakefield and the anti-vax movement. And then we had the climate science denier movement and other related things. And scientists started to realize, oh shit, if we don't control the narrative surrounding our work, somebody else is going to. Right. And that somebody else may not have the truth in mind. They might have a particular agenda in mind. And now all of a sudden, well, I shouldn't say all of a sudden, but now in 2022, a lot of PhD programs, if not most PhD programs, have a SciComm component, have a way. Scientists realized that we need to take a role in the public understanding of our work.
Right.
And I feel like that's something that's lacking in the skeptical movement, because things like, I actually, in my Moonfall article that talked about Velikovsky, I actually mentioned the founding of SciComm in 1976. Now, of course, CSI, which, Kenny, you are now fellow of. Congratulations. And
Thank you.
I also have written for, and will write for again once I get off my ass. But at the same time, I do see what I do as being more valuable to the general public. So yes.
How you feeling, man?
Damn it.
Good?
I was so close.
So close.
Where was I?
You're talking about like the public and shit like that.
Public and shit like that. It was really important. But so anyway. Yeah, so a lot of scientists didn't see the value in communicating with the public directly. And I feel like, unfortunately, like I kind of see Skeptical Inquirer and Skeptic Magazine and the UK Skeptic and the Australian Skeptic apparently were really awesome at coming up with varied names, as kind of like our scientific journals. Like that's where, like you said earlier, like you were talking about, where you'll investigate a particular case, and that's where it'll end up. It'll either end up on the Skeptical Inquirer website or in the magazine or both. And that's kind of like where the skeptical research is published. And I talked about it earlier, if you're going to be a volcanologist, if you're going to be a geophysicist, you better be reading geophysical research letters every time it comes out. Mm-hmm. If you're a skeptical researcher, you better be reading Skeptical Inquirer every month it comes out. But here's the thing. We don't expect the public to read geophysical research letters. Mm-hmm. For some reason, we expect the public to read Skeptical Inquirer. And that was kind of why SciComm was founded in the first place. SciComm, now CSI, was to combat things like Velikovsky and things like astrology and what people perceived as being anti-science bunk gaining ground in the public sphere.
Right.
And my contention is 50 years on that it maybe hasn't fulfilled that promise, at least completely. Even back in the days when the newsstand was more of a thing than it is now, you could find Skeptical Inquirer and Skeptic in the science section, but they usually weren't out front. They were kind of in the back, and they were next to 40 in Times, and they were next to UFO Magazine. I'm not gonna slag 40 in Times. It's fun, but at the same time, it was all kind of grouped together, and it was kind of in the back behind everything else. So that's why I kind of see those periodicals as our scientific journals. That's where the professional, quote unquote, because now all of us get paid, the professional skeptics keep up on what's happening in the leading edge of skepticism. But that doesn't mean the public is going to pick it up. Right. So that's where hashtag SkepCom comes in, just like hashtag SciCom came in 20, 30 years ago and is such a big thing now. There needs to be, if the people writing the quote unquote journal articles in Skeptical Inquirer and Skeptic aren't going to engage with the public. I'm not saying people don't try sometimes. I know Ben has published in Live Science. Sharon Hill, who doesn't like the S word anymore, she's published in Slate and other places. I think it was Slate. Not Slate. Huffington Post, maybe Slate too. Like there needs to be an intermediary. There needs to be somebody or a group of people who take the skeptical work in the journals and brings it to the people. And that's where I see hashtag SkepCom. And I think AIPT Science is proof of concept of that. But at the same time, it doesn't have to be the only thing, because it doesn't have to be pop culture necessarily, because everybody has different interests. Everybody has, even if it's a professional thing, you have different interests, you have different a knowledge base from your profession or from wherever else. That's why I'm going to take March off for the most part to relax a little bit after Skepticism Month on AIPT. But in April, I want to introduce a Discord server that is for the doers. That is for people who want to engage in skeptical communication and skeptical activism. Because I think it's something that's needed and something that's lacking. And like we've been talking about all day, or all
night.
All night. What time is it?
The last hour and a half.
We are so much better when we interact and when we bounce ideas off of each other and when we can draw on each other's knowledge. That's the history of humanity right there. And the history of science is drawing from people who have done things that we haven't done. Don't reinvent the wheel. Ask somebody who's already done it. And or ask somebody who knows how to do it. And that's the thing. It's like a lot of us, like I said before, like I might be good with words, but I'm an idiot when it comes to video. So if I wanted to make a video, I need somebody who is good at video editing and who understands that kind of thing. And maybe somebody who's good at video editing really likes skepticism and wants to contribute, but doesn't know how to do it. So if we can get all of these people together in one place, then we can start making some noise.
So I want to comment on a few things.
Please.
I understand where you're coming from with like a Skeptical Inquirer. I love it's near and dear to my heart. Because
me too.
It's something that I found like this was part of my gateway into skepticism and science is reading the work of Ben Radford, Joe Nickell, in those, because those are two guys that really dealt with the topics that I was interested in.
And they've done the work, man.
They've done the work. I mean, they've dug deep. And I've learned a lot of skills from both of them. I've had the opportunity to work with both of them. In fact, next issue of SI that comes out, the print issue, I have another article in there with Joe Nickell. Awesome. So we work together on something. But I get it, because it's the media has changed over the years. And yeah, you talked about like newsstands, and it's almost nostalgia now, because like I only go to a newsstand or the bookstore when I see one, or I want to go to it, because I usually order my books online. A lot of people get stuff online, and things like SI have gone online. So most of my articles are online, which is nice because I can share them easily on social media and it gets that attention. And they have a podcast called Point of Inquiry. But it's still on that verge of or edge of academic versus entertaining. And I mean, people like us, we like that kind of stuff. I like that kind of stuff, so I listen to it. And then now I think they're experimenting, and I'm going to say that, experimenting with people like me, because now I do videos for them, and my videos are completely different than what they usually offer. And I'm not trying to, pat my own back here, but I say what I want to do. I usually drink before the videos. I don't drink on those videos, but I drink before it, and I get in the mood, and I have fun, and I poke fun at people and myself mostly, and have jokes. And then I do stuff like this, and I think they're slowly shifting towards that. They're seeing the potential, and with the newer generations that are coming up, that's how you reach people. And I think, there's like Skeptical Inquirer was our science journal, but it's not the science journal for the next generations.
Star Trek. The way I see it is, I mean, I forget. There is going to be. You and I talked about this a little bit before we went on the air. But I need to shout out Mitch Lampert and Craig Sachs from New York City Skeptics, who have been doing amazing work in video editing. Like I said earlier, I'm the president of the New York City Skeptics. Search for New York City Skeptics on YouTube. We've really been trying to build up our YouTube channel in the pandemic. We've got guest lectures. Every talk from AIPT Sci-Fi Fest is up there, and a bunch of other stuff. But they've been really great with video editing. So check that out.
All right. So I'm going to post a link to that in the chat. There it goes. So your New York City Skeptics.
Thank you.
And I have,
we will get back to if you're in the New York City area, we will get back to in-person lectures eventually, but that seemed like a good thing to do. So much is video based now. I still think there's a place for the written word. And Kenny, and I'm glad that CSI has understood your different approach, and tell them that I might be valuable too, because sometimes, I mean, I gotta say, like people like Ben Radford, I'm gonna be on Squaring the Strange coming up pretty soon. Awesome. So Ben Radford and Celestia Ward have been amazing. They've contributed to AIPT Science. They are real big believers. Susan Gerbic is a real big believer in AIPT Science, as I am in guerrilla skepticism on Wikipedia. But I feel like there are other elements in the skeptical community who either don't know about this or don't understand it, and which is kind of strange to me. But at the same time, that's okay, because it's not really for them. But at the same time, it's like the more buy-in we have from the skeptical community, the better our numbers look. Mm-hmm. The more we can take this to other people and say, hey, look, this stuff sells. You need to be doing more of this.
And I also think there's a step with the pandemic that hit us. I mean, it forced everyone to look at platforms like this now. Like I was doing videos for YouTube, which were really, really bad. And I really have to take them down and redo them, because it's almost embarrassing when I look at the older videos. But it forced us to go online. And if we can't be physically in the same room with each other, this helps, because like there's, I think the last show I did where it was an open mic night. So I try to do an open mic night where it's just anyone can come on and ask a question or talk. And we had, I think, 5 people on. And it was just a roundtable kind of discussion. It was nice. We were in a virtual room together, and we still had that conversation going. We still were giving our own opinions and talking about things and throwing out ideas. So the pandemic sucks, but the good thing that came out of it is that we still were able to interact with everyone. And because of this, because of virtual rooms like this and Zoom and StreamYard and other things, I get to be in the same virtual room with people that I probably would never have been in a room with, because of distance, location. It's just Susan Gerbic. I love talking to her, but she's in California. Mark Edward, California. I don't get to hang out with them unless we go to SciCon. So it's nice to be able to actually get into a room, a Zoom meeting with them and talk to them and bounce ideas off. And I do like that.
And I actually, Jesus Christ, it was over a year ago now. That's how long this has been percolating that I had a good, because Susan, she's like you, man. She likes to talk.
Wait a minute. I don't know if
that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. It's just different from me. Over a year ago, like holiday time, so like 14 months or so ago, I first talked to Susan about this whole SkepCom idea I had and the Discord server, and she didn't really understand, wasn't very on board at first, but then every kind of objection, quibble she brought up, I was like, well, there's this and there's this. Again, because there's a technology aspect there. And not that I'm the best with technology, but Discord is actually really more intuitive than I would have expected. So I think I convinced her. So hopefully, and I haven't talked to her recently about it, but I would like to see a big buy-in to this idea from the Guerrilla Skeptics come April when I launch the thing, because they are obviously very knowledgeable and know how to connect with the public.
Awesome. All right. Let me get to, I have a couple questions here. Let's get to them. Darren, Russ mentioned going with groups to investigate. Are there any groups either of you have been with that impressed you as skeptics?
Again, I don't really interact with paranormal groups. I'm going to let Kenny answer that as I take my own personal break. Excuse me for a second.
Oh, it's drinking too much. All right, so I guess we're in open mic night right now. So I guess my answer has to be like a very delicate one. I work with a lot of groups, and I go out with a lot of groups. So it's very difficult for me to find a ghost hunting group or a paranormal group that subscribes to a more strict scientific viewpoint as I do. I mean, when I go out and I talk about data, you guys that watch this show, pretty much what I look for, what I'm about, what I try to collect. I collect massive amounts of data and really try to go with the controls when they do experiments and not just random shit like throwing out ghost hunting equipment and just seeing what lights up and blinks and makes noises and shit like that. So are there groups that I was impressed with? Not really. And to be blunt, no. There's a lot of groups that are fun to be around and to talk with, and they entertain ideas and we have conversations. But after the conversation, where I bring up a lot of points and critique, it's like, okay, most of the time it's like, okay, yeah, cool, that's a good idea, and they consider it. But then the very next time they go out, they fall back into the cookie cutter routine of ghost hunting, which is what you see on TV. Not looking at the controls, not looking at possible explanations. So are there ghost hunting groups? The short answer is no. No, I have not been impressed with any ghost hunting group that I've been out with. Once in a while, I like online groups where I like their philosophy, but when they put it in practice, I don't see that. So that's my answer. Hope that answered your question.
Well, I think it was you who at some point, maybe it wasn't, you can tell me if I'm wrong, drew the distinction between ghost hunting groups and investigation groups. Because ghost hunting groups, you would think at least, as the name implies, they're looking for a particular outcome.
Yeah. Whereas investigating, I mean, when you go out ghost hunting, or even when they call themselves paranormal investigators, that's just another name that they gave themselves. And admittedly, like once in a while, I call myself a skeptical investigator, but I really hate giving myself a title because I'm giving myself a title. I don't know if I earned that yet. I'm not sure, but you give yourself a title and you go out, and I don't see them actually investigate. And it goes back to an earlier question that somebody brought up about solving mysteries. I think we talked about it. Solving mysteries. They're not solving mysteries. They are mystery mongering. They are promoting that mystery. They are taking it and saying, oh, look, we're going to add to this mystery. We're not solving it. For me, my perspective is they are not investigators. They are storytellers that are adding to the story. That's it. So, all right. Next question. We got two more. Let's see. John Kennedy. What interpretation of quantum mechanics of what we currently have do you think is most plausible? That's all you.
I'm not sure what you mean there. I'm going to guess you're kind of alluding to the Copenhagen interpretation or something like that. Apparently, and again, this is, I used to read a lot of popular physics books, like, by Brian Greene and all those people, and I haven't really recently, but from my understanding is that the many worlds hypothesis is gaining ground. It was kind of looked down upon as untestable and way too complex by a lot of people. And again, my degree's in geophysics, so this is just as an interested layman. I did take modern physics in college, which included relativity and quantum mechanics, but needless to say, they did not talk about these kinds of things in those classes. But it's my understanding, again, that the many worlds interpretation is gaining favor kind of by attrition in the physics world, because it's getting to the point where people can't reasonably deny it. I feel like many worlds basically being multiverse, if you're a pop culture fan.
Marvel.
I feel like a lot of people didn't like it on principle, but they can't refute it mathematically. Like the mathematics seems to point to it, and honestly, if you can't refute the mathematics, then you're kind of stuck. But you might draw the comparison between the people who didn't like the size of the universe, who thought that everything in our galaxy was everything, and then we learned that there were billions of galaxies, and there may be people who might think that one universe is enough, and that it might be ridiculous to think there are multiple universes. So you might be able to draw the comparison there, but again, I think the worm is turning, and more people are saying, I don't have a mathematical objection to the multiverse, so I have to throw my hands up.
Well, we'll see when Doctor Strange comes out. We might change our opinions. I don't know. All right. Let's see. What else? We got Jade Kitten. I have a Skeptical Inquirer subscription. I am not an academic and do not find it difficult or unpleasant to read at all. Surely I'm not the only one.
Jade, I want to tell us in the chat. I want to understand your background and what led you to get a Skeptical Inquirer prescription. Because I will challenge you with this, Jade. Go read the comments on a typical YouTube video, or a typical sponsored Facebook post that gets thrown to you, and you tell me, do you think the people in those comments sections would ever, in a million years, read Skeptical Inquirer? Because my argument would be probably not.
Probably not.
And those are kind of the people we need to reach. And like I said before, I mean, I write for Skeptical Inquirer. I will do so in the future. I'm positive of it. That is our journals. It is. I mean, you wouldn't do science without journals. You can't. But at some point, you need to get from the academic journals to the people. And I understand. Obviously, Skeptical Inquirer is not as heady as Geophysical Research Letters or something like that. Right. But I once lent a copy of Skeptic, Shermer's Skeptic, to a fellow grad student when I was doing grad work in geophysics at Boston College. And she was smart. Obviously, she was there. She wasn't a dummy. And eventually she gave it back to me and said, I couldn't understand anything in this fucking magazine. And that was, again, a geology, geophysics graduate student. And I was like, as aghast that as probably a lot of you are right now. I was like, really? I don't believe that. But there it is.
I find I read through every issue when I get it. And I guess there's a sliding scale. There's some that are very almost more academic, because I've read academic papers, and I mean, probably the most boring shit you'll ever read. But if you're interested in the topic, it is interesting. I like to read the methodology and really get into the nitty gritty and the details. But you have that sliding scale in SI about from academic level journals all the way to more like, I'm totally going to use myself, because I don't write for academics. I don't write for scientists. I write for the people that I associate most with. And that's usually like the ghost hunters or UFO hunters and stuff, because those are the people that I'm always interacting with, more so than skeptical people. So I write for them, and I write for me, because like I read some articles and I understand them, sometimes with the help of my phone next to me so I can look up certain words. But I don't like having to think too hard about it. I want to read something that, again, it gives me information, but also maybe entertains me a little bit.
Yeah.
Like keeps my interest.
And that's why I say, look at modern SciComm. I mean, modern SciComm, science communication, is all about taking what we've learned and putting it in an entertaining way to reach people who wouldn't care about it in any other way, or who might be interested, but, you know, maybe the New York Times isn't talking about it in their science section, and they're certainly not going to subscribe to a journal. By the way, if you ever want to see anybody, this goes back to what I said before about bugging people and not being afraid to bug people. If you ever want to read a scientific paper, by the way, reading a scientific paper is a real skill. It's not something anybody can do.
Yeah.
You might want to read up on that ahead of time. But if you do want to read a particular paper, find out the lead author or even one of the other authors and literally find their again, this is my journalism training, but you know, you can do this just with Google. If you're halfway proficient with Google, I swear you can do this. Find one of the authors, find their academic email, and ask them. Say, hey, can you send me this paper? Because academic journals are a racket, but the authors can send you the paper that they've written, right. And they absolutely will, because they are thrilled to have people interested in their research.
Right. It'll save you a lot of money because, I mean, it's not cheap. It's not cheap to get a lot of these papers. And one of my co-hosts. from my Three Tortured Souls show that I do Saturdays. He has subscriptions to a lot of outlets to get these papers, or he buys them outright. And we talked about it on one of the shows and just how much it costs. It's a lot of money. So this is a good workaround.
It's nuts. I mean, I follow a lot of people on Twitter who are critical of. I don't want to say critical of modern science because that sounds denier-ish, but critical of the business of science. It's not conducive to people understanding. It really isn't.
Okay. All right. Couple more questions. Let's see. Darren, what books from skeptics' point of view concerning the paranormal would either of you recommend?
Do you have anything?
Let's see. Let me move some of my stuff. Let me move my mystery machine and get some.
I would say, well, I'll tell you what. While he's looking, I will tell you a book that doesn't qualify but still helped me. I meant to tell this story earlier. I was a big believer. Like I said, I was a big believer in everything when I was young, and I eventually settled on UFOs. I really liked UFOs, and I was going to say I still do, but I do again. And the thing that turned the corner for me, believe it or not, was Jacques Vallée, who believes in the ultra-terrestrial nonsense that UFOs are real and they are piloted by beings who are from another dimension or some other place. So it's weird, but he asked a really good question to some nuts and bolts ufologists once about people who believed in underground alien bases. And it was in the book Revelations. He wrote this. He asked them, who takes out the garbage? And they were all like, well, what are you talking about? And he said, you're talking about a facility that's the size of Rhode Island under the desert in the American Southwest. They're going to produce a lot of waste. Who takes out the garbage?
Right.
And the alien people, the alien believers were like, who cares? It doesn't matter. We need to understand why they're here and why they're hurting humans and whatever. But that really, again, I don't think this was really Jacques Vallée. Jacques Vallée, by the way, who is now a part of Harvard's Galileo project investigating UFOs. God help us all. I don't think he really wanted to provide a skeptical analysis there, but that really made me think, oh my God, why did I never think of that question? And I was 15 at the time, to be fair to myself. But I was like, oh, you know what? That's a really good question. I never even thought of that. And I've been believing all this UFO stuff, and I never had the wherewithal to ask these kinds of questions. How do I know what are the right questions to ask? And that's what eventually led me to science. Again, that has got to be a very non-standard answer to that question. Kenny, I've been vamping while Kenny has been looking. What have you got, Kenny?
Oh my gosh, I got a whole list. I'll go through them real quick. But one of the originals, Flim Flam by James Randi. Love it.
I saw Tim. By the way, Tim Vickers called out Demon Haunted World. I'll tell you what. I read that when I was 17 or 18, and I love. You got it. I loved it, but I was also. It took me about, like you said, it's a process to getting into skepticism.
Yeah.
It took me about 10 years, a full decade, before I let go of all the crazy stuff. So when I read Demon Haunted World in 97, 98, when I was 17, 18, there was some of it where I was like, well, I think he's being a little unfair to this. Where if I read it today, I'd be like, yeah, that's spot on.
Yeah. I mean, some of these are dated, and Demon Haunted World is one that when you read through it, yes, it's going to be dated. Yeah. But it's still
just like Cosmos is.
Yeah. It has good information on it. One of my favorite books, The Full Facts Book of Cold Reading. Excellent book when you're dealing with psychics and mediums. I mean, awesome. This is an expensive book. I was lucky enough to inherit this from a friend of mine, but expensive, but worth it. Scientific All Americans by Sharon Hill. Really good book. It really delves into the amateur ghost hunting groups and the issues and fallacies and whatnot with them. Really, really good book. Spook.
Oh, yeah.
Love this by Mary Roach. I mean, I love Mary Roach anyway. I think she's a brilliant author. The way she presents her topics are amazing, but this really goes into more of the paranormal kind of stuff. One of my favorite books too, Camera Clues by Joe Nickel. For me, because I deal with a lot of photography, this is the old school book. This is my old school photography Bible, if you will, that goes up right before digital. Or actually, it ends with digital photography, but doesn't go into it. This is old film, plate photography. Beautiful.
Well, go ahead.
One more, Investigating Ghosts by my my buddy Ben. I love it. This is good, and I'm not just saying that because I wrote part of a chapter in there. It may have something to do with it, but no. I actually like this book, and it really gets into good investigative skills. So there's a good pile to start with.
All right, I'm going to segue. Bob says, "Escaping the Rabbit Hole" by Mick West. Yes, 100%. Yeah. I haven't read it, but I had somebody review it, and it really does seem to be the way. It's not something a skeptic needs to read. It's something a skeptic needs to give somebody who believes in conspiracy beliefs.
Right.
Or give somebody who wants to help people out of conspiracy beliefs. Yes. Which leads me to, one of the things we talked about AIPT Sci-Fi Fest earlier. One of the other really cool things we were able to do last October, another part of AIPT Sci-Fi Fest was we had James Tynan IV on, who is the writer of an Image Comics book called The Department of Truth, which is there were some good things in Spawn this past year in 2021, but I'm going to go ahead and say Department of Truth was the biggest independent comic in the world in 2021. And James Tynan IV is one of us, folks. He believed in a lot of weird stuff when he was young, but then he kind of became more skeptical as time went on. And now he writes this tremendously successful comic about conspiracy theories and the danger that they cause. The premise of the comic, I don't think I'm giving away too much when I say, is that if too many people believe in a particular conspiracy theory, it becomes real. So there's this particular government investigation, government institution that called the Department of Truth that tries to minimize that public belief. And when I saw this book was coming out, I got very interested, obviously, as you might expect. And I reached out to Tynan very early on. And that's when I discovered that he was much of the same mindset as we are. And we really bonded. And he was part of the AIPT Science Sci-Fi Fest. If you go to the New York City Skeptics YouTube page, you can see that. There was we did a big jam session with James and Blake of Monster Talk, and Stephanie Kemmerer, who was an expert in QAnon, and Jim J. Card, and Bob Blaskowitz. And that was kind of a test case. It was, again, a great talk between the 4 or 5, 6 of us. And then at New York Comic Con this past year in October, James, who luckily lives in Brooklyn, New York, was able to do a panel with us at New York Comic Con, the second or first biggest Comic Con in the country, depending on how you count tickets. and I had to find local people for that, obviously, because we did it in person. So Bob Blaskowitz was able to attend that again, and also Eve Siebert, who talked about the phantom time hypothesis, which was again another issue in Department of Truth, and got Brian Regal, who did general cryptid stuff, because James is also really into cryptids, because who isn't? It was a down year because obviously the pandemic. The NYCC did not sell as many tickets as they would in a usual year. But again, if you think #SkepCom can't work, I submit to you our panel at New York Comic Con with James Tynan and 3 excellent skeptics.
Nice. Very cool. All right. We are at the end of our 2 hours. This has been fun. I've enjoyed myself.
I showed you this earlier before we went on air. Can I tell you?
You can.
The awesome things we have coming up for Skepticism Month 2022.
I hope you do. Please.
Well, here we go. I'm surprised Rob Palmer isn't here trying to promote himself. He is going to have we always try to do something for Darwin Day, obviously, like I said before, on February 12th. I may put his article on Darwin Day because he's talking about aliens and what they might look like and what evolution might say they might look like.
Oh, we love talking about that shit. I think the show I do Saturday nights, we have put in our rotation an open mic night, and we actually did. Somebody asked a question. I think it was John with an H that brought up the question about aliens and what they would look like, and we started to go into that a little bit, but we love talking about that.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited about that. If anybody out there, I saw a lot of people asking earlier, like, how do I get started in skepticism? This month's Department of Truth article is about MK Ultra, so I am looking for someone to write about MK Ultra, what it was, what conspiracy theorists think it was, because that's going to be very important. So,
opportunity.
If you're interested in writing about MK Ultra, contact me. We are going to have an interview with Seth Breedlove of Small Town Monsters. Their new Kickstarter is up as of yesterday, I believe. They do lots of cool things. I think they have stuff coming. I think the new Kickstarter is for stuff on the Jersey Devil and all kinds of cool monsters. We have Kevin Keith, Kevin Keith, who is a bioethicist. He's going to be writing about the Spider-Man story, The Clone Conspiracy, because there was honestly some weird right to try stuff in there, which skeptics actually care about. We've got some cool book reviews coming up. We've got Stephanie Kammerer, the QAnon expert on conspiracy theories on pop culture and the reciprocal relationship between them. I'm looking for something really awesome. Really awesome. Miles Greb, co-host of the Plastic Plesiosaur podcast and writer of After the Gold Rush and a couple other sites and Skepticism comic books, is going to be talking about the cult of Nikola Tesla. Ooh. And if we really revere him as much as we should, or if we revere him too much.
Oh, that sounds interesting. I like that.
Yes. And also a huge X-Men fan who is also a religious studies person asking, are the new X-Men under Jonathan Hickman a cult? Using the definition of cult and what we see in the current X-Men comics. That's a critical angle right there. Are the X-Men a cult?
See, blending science with comic books. I mean,
all kinds of things. Every single day, ladies and gentlemen, every single day in the month of February, we will have something new about skepticism in or of pop culture. How can you go wrong?
All right. Let me see here. I got 3 quick questions to go through.
Let's do it.
The first one I want to do is Jade Kitten, because Jade Kitten is a very good fan of the show. So I told you guys, like you asked, So she responded about why she subscribed to Skeptical Inquirer. And it's because she saw James Randi had written in it or was writing for it, and then she subscribed. So, I mean, that's a good thing. I mean, I love James Randi. I am fortunate enough to have met him several times. Was able to give him a great big hug the first time I met him, and he was so sweet. And I always have to mention this. Like, you see him on like YouTube videos where he's very stern, he's very strict, he's very straightforward. He deals with claims in a straightforward manner and, no sugarcoating. But when I met him, one of the sweetest people I have ever met in my life. I mean, so sweet and just very gentle and funny. Awesome guy. And I do miss him very much. But I agree. Like, James Randi was one of the inspirations, like, I had actually started reading Skeptical Inquirer because of Ben Radford. He was the guy that I originally, I looked at his work. I saw his work and saw Joe Nickel, and then I saw James Randi. So that was my progression. You want to add anything to that?
Well, so after my weird Jacques Vallée revelation, which came from the book Revelations, I started reading Cosmos, Carl Sagan's Cosmos, and that's what really started me on the journey to science. But it wasn't, and science and skepticism was always something I thought about from that point. But it was really, again, New York City Skeptics, which I didn't even really understood existed until I got a random, I moved to the New York City suburbs in 2006. And I don't think it was till 2012 that I understood that something like the New York City Skeptics existed. And I went to the 2012 Nexus, new Northeast Conference on Science and Skepticism, and Randi was there. And that's why I went, honestly, because I was like, I had only read Flim Flam at that point, but at the same time, I was like, well, this is one of the granddaddies of it all.
Right.
And I was like, well, I better go see him now. And then he hung around for a while after that. But he talked about Peter Popov, who sadly has made something of a comeback in recent years. But he talked about his expose of Peter Popov, where they were able to tune in onto the radio frequencies that his wife was using to talk to him in his earpiece, so that he could have this apparently miraculous knowledge of the people he was talking to. And it was really heartbreaking. And this is where I'm glad we've gotten to this. And by the way, if you want, I can keep talking as long as you want.
I'm good. I have nowhere to go. This is my life on Friday night.
Right?
Show, you guys that watch the show, you are my life on Friday night. So I am here until you're ready to either go or you pass out. And then I'll just keep going. Anyway.
Because there were people who would come to Peter Popov's revivals who were, the power of the mind is a big thing. And especially you might feel, if you have some kind of not so bad ailment, when the spirit is flowing through you, you might be able to stand up and say, oh yes, I feel better. And maybe 2 weeks later, you might not feel so better. But then there are people who are literally crippled and nothing's going to help them, and it's not going to be a good show. And Randi at Nexus 2012 talked about one particular kid who had been following Popov around the country, hoping that he would notice him and heal him. And he had crutches, and obviously he couldn't help him. And he would say to his mother, while Randi was there, he saw the kid say to his mother, why doesn't he ever help me?
Yeah.
And Randi again, this is, it might seem dirty pool to you, but Randy was a showman. He knew what to do. And he said that, and then he paused and he drew it out. He said, and then after that long spell of silence, he yelled, "What kind of people are these?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of person does this? Raises people's hopes and then never follows through."
Right.
And I was standing in the way back of the room. There's actually a picture of this from behind Randy. You could see me in the black shirt and the hat, way in the back of the room, standing by the wall. And it was that point that I said, I got to do something. I can't just live my life and not, knowing what I know, I can't just sit back. I need to try to do something.
Yeah. I think that's what drives all of us, you know, when we do this, when we get into this, and not just a supporter, but when we're, I guess, activists, you know, we actively do things to expose this kind of bullshit. It inspires us, you know. I see people with that false hope, and I feel for them. I really do. And you know, stories like that, and I've heard that story from Randy, and it's just, it's heartbreaking, you know, where somebody that desperately wants to be healed, or you know, that follows it around and they do everything they're supposed to do according to that charlatan, but they still don't get the payoff, and it's heartbreaking. And as skeptics, as people that explain this kind of stuff and show it for what it really is, that's the difficult task. You know, when someone comes to you and says, "Why can't he heal me?" You know, because he heals all these other people, why can't he heal me? And it's like, what do you do? I try to be as honest as I can, but sometimes it's very, very difficult, and it sucks. But all right, let's not end the show on a downer here. we got a couple quick questions. We got a couple more that popped in. I can get rid of it. I can go through a couple of these really quick. Kenny, when are you signing my Skeptical Inquirer issue with you? Whenever I see you, John. John, you need to come out. Gettysburg. That's coming up. I'll announce that in a couple minutes. But you need to come out, and I'll sign it then. You bring it out.
Can I just say, I think the best thing I've ever written is a really overlooked Skeptical Inquirer article in the print magazine. Google, I think it was called The Art of Discourse. Maybe like Art of Discourse, Skeptical Inquirer. When I went and I interviewed some, this is in the print magazine. This is what we're talking about.
Right.
I interviewed some skeptical musicians. I interviewed George Robb, and I interviewed Baba Brinkman, who did some things for Nexus a few times. He's a rapper. He talks about evolution and all kinds of cool things. And I also went to a show of the band Bill X Nye, a grindcore band who did songs about evolution and skepticism and atheism. And I felt like that was a really good article that got overlooked by a lot of people. So if you're interested in music and skepticism, search that out. And I would appreciate it.
I just posted the link. Skepticism and Popular Music, The Art of Discourse.
Yes.
Yes. Just posted the link so you can see that.
Thank you.
Oh, why did sometimes it doesn't post to Facebook the first time? Let me try again. All right. So let me see. We got that. Skeptical Help Bar Book Club. When does it start? It starts whenever I remember to recommend a book. That's what it does, because I used to do a segment like that where I had a recommended book, but I usually forget. But we did a couple.
I'll tell you what. If anybody has any, I don't read the journals, as I call them, as much as I used to. I kind of see my subscription as my donation. So if anybody knows of any good skeptical books coming out, let me know, because I will try to get them reviewed. And
last question of the night. what are some good skeptical movies?
Oh,
So I'm going to throw in documentaries with that. So go ahead, if you got something.
no, go ahead. I gotta find. I can't remember the titles. I gotta find it. Go ahead.
The one that pops into mind right away is Behind the Curve.
Oh yes.
I think that's a beautiful movie. I think it's a documentary. It's a great one. It follows a couple of prominent flat Earth believers around and really gives you a good viewpoint. And I think it's worth it. It's definitely worth it, especially because of the experiments that are performed. Oh my God, it's so awesome. I mean, it's really, really good. Another one is, and this is probably off the wall. It's a limited series, I think, on Netflix called Don't Fuck with Cats. If you watch it, I think it's like a four-part series, but it follows. It starts out with this guy posting videos to like I don't know if it's YouTube or a YouTube like server, but he kills kittens. He actually takes little kittens and he I think the opening video is he throws them into a bag, ties a knot, and throws them into a river. And there is a group of people like kind of like internet skeptics or internet investigators that decide to find this guy because he posts more videos, and then it actually it evolves into a murder. The guy actually murders somebody, and these people come together and they find him. They find who it is, and it's amazing. It's amazing, the story. So I definitely recommend that.
Huh. Yeah, that's cool. The first thing that came to my mind was the Museum of the Moving Picture, I believe it is, in New York City, has there's a thing called the Sloan Science and Film, which will actually sponsor some movies with science in them, with good science in them in New York City. And there is a sponsored movie called The Sound of Silence that I was able to go see in person. And some of the filmmakers were there, and some scientists were there to answer some questions afterwards. And it's kind of a little known science, pseudoscience, that, you've probably heard that, like, well, everything has a frequency. But there are some pseudoscience practitioners who will say that they can tune your house. Like there might be something that's out of tune in your house, and they will get it back in tune, so you can live a better life and feel better. And the movie The Sound of Silence is kind of about that. It doesn't really. I mean, it's not. It's one of those things where. I talked to the filmmaker at one point, and he said he kind of wanted to play it down the middle, but at the same time, if you watch it, it seems to me like it's pretty much saying like this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, and like he submitted a paper to an audiology journal, and he sees the editor of the journal at some point. And he's like, "Oh hey, it's so great to meet you. I sent you a paper." And he was like, and the editor of the journal was like, "Oh, I kind of didn't think you were a real person. I thought that was a joke." And it's kind of, again, if you're of a believer bent, you can kind of see it as, the establishment is gonna take you seriously. But I think it's much more, the scale is much more tilted towards some things are crazy and probably don't belong in discourse. It's an independent film called The Sound of Silence. I called it an unintentional skeptical anthem. So go check that out if you can find it.
Cool. And I will put a disclaimer up. Thanks, Jade Kitten, for mentioning it. But if you watch the series Don't Fuck with Cats, It is graphic. So if you really love animals and can't stand to watch them suffer, it might be too much for you. Just letting you know, giving you a heads up there. But if you can get past it, it's very good investigative skills. A lot of the skills that they use, because it's all done via internet, a lot of the skills that they use are ones that I use to find people and explain situations. So really cool. All right, with that, you can stick around. I'm going to do my announcements, and we're going to get out of here. So there you go. Oh, wait, I got to go over here. So, oh, wait, that's rules. See, I'm feeling pretty good. Here we go. Squid Bob's announcements. Squid Game Bob announcements. Bob is one of our locals. He's one of our regulars to the bar, and he has taken over the announcements here. So I want to say Saturdays, 8 p.m. Eastern. Yes, I have finally added it to my announcements. I do a show called Three Tortured Souls. I am one of the co-hosts with Tim Vickers and Dave Schumacher. Every week, we take a topic, and we science the shit out of it. We come at it from 3 different perspectives. We talk about it. We give our viewpoints. And then we've just added in our rotation every 4th week, we're going to do an open mic night where you guys can ask your questions or come on the show and talk with us. And it's not limited. A bunch of you can come on. We can have a roundtable discussion. So lots of fun. July 23rd, I will be set up at the Para-Unity Conference in Woodbridge, New Jersey. It is a paranormal conference. I'll be setting up my Skeptical Help Bar booth. I have a full booth that looks like what you see here in this frame. Donna will be there with her Lucky Tiki Creations booth too. So if you're in the area or you can get there, please come out and hang out with us. It's pretty good. It's actually that's probably the paranormal conference where I've been the most busy. So I've actually had with something that's themed around paranormal unity. I had a line at my booth, which I was amazed at. And everything was good. Every conversation was actually good. August 19th to 21st is the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash. I cannot wait for it. It's probably one of my favorite conferences that I go to. I will be setting up in Gettysburg. They were really good people, lots of good people to talk to, and they have a lot of events, and there are parties every night, which I am always at. So if you can get there, please come on out, hang out with me. And I will not shoo away a bottle of rum if you bring it to me. I will gladly and happily accept that. And you can even sit behind the booth with me if you bring me a bottle of rum. And then lastly, October 20th to 23rd is SciCon in Vegas. There were a couple of rumors around that I started seeing people post about it being virtual this year. I actually reached out to Barry Carr, which is the executive director of CSI, and asked him probably 2 days ago. I said, hey, what's going on? Is this virtual or are we in person? And according to him, we are still in person. So with that, hopefully, if I can figure out a way to get them to invite me again, I will be out there. If not, then oh well. But I'm hoping.
And in that vein, if you want to see me and or AIPT Science at SciCon on October 20th, email them because
yes,
Barry. I know Barry is a big fan of what we do, but he is not the only person involved in the decision making. So if you want to see an AIPT Science presence, please tell them.
I would like to see that. That was cool. Is that that's where we met, right?
Yes, the first SciCon.
Yes,
correct.
I believe
I paid. Yeah, that one I just wanted to go to. I paid for that one myself.
I think so did I. That was my first time there, and I think weren't we in line for Joe Nickel?
I think you were going to talk to Joe, and I was like, "Fuck Joe! I want to talk to Kenny."
Dude, you surprised the shit out of me. I think that's the first time, or one of the rare times, where I was speechless because we were in line together. You were behind me, and I think I turned to you. I didn't know who you were, and I was like, "Oh," I said something like, "Oh, you're getting Joe's autograph too," and you were like, No, I'm here to talk to you. And I remember my wife like laughing at me
I
because
remember your face. I remember your face. It was
like, what?
white as a ghost. Yes.
Why? The fuck you want to talk to me for? There's Joe Nichols right there. What are you looking at
Yeah.
me for?
Everyone wants to talk to Joe.
Oh, that was awesome, man. And I never forgot that. So really cool moment. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much for that. All right. So we're good. We're good. I'm going to look at, I think we're all caught up with the comments and yeah, we're good. So I'm going to play my ending video here in a moment. I'm going to get it queued up and just tell everyone, please have a good weekend. Get out there, adventure, learn, have fun, be skeptical, but have fun. And next week, I actually, who do I have next week? I think, what's today's date? The 4th. What did I just post? I think I have JD coming on next week because he's doing the 1-chip challenge. And we're going to talk about something with Satanism or something. I don't know what we're going to talk about. All I know is that he's going to eat this chip.
I will tell him to also promote Skepticism Month again.
There you go. All right, people. Thank you for hanging out. I appreciate it. Let me check the comments. Yeah. All right, good. Got it all. I will see you next week. And remember, never stop learning. Bye.